What secret are you taking to the grave, NSFW? I was in bed last night crying because my best friend got married a week ago and I realized that I still love her. When I was younger I was at my friend's house sledding. He had to leave with his family but I kept sledding. I lost control and ran over a baby pine tree they had planted earlier in the year. A tree they had planted in remembrance of my friend's grandma passing away that year. I had snapped the tree when I hit it. So I just stuck it in the snow and left. Weeks later and it warms up enough that the snow melts and the tree falls over. They were devastated when they discovered their tree was broken with no explanation how it happened. When I was a freshman and my stepmom was drinking at the time. She gave me a kiss on lips, full blown, just because she felt bad for all the way she treated me in middle school and got in a wreck while being drunk. Me being a little stupid, I let myself get carried away and made out with her for like a good 10 minutes. My dad popped in. Broke it off right before he actually saw it. Let's just say that was the first person I actually kissed. My sister and I were on holiday together recently and very drunk one night when we got back from the bar. Naturally we started drinking more because we were on holiday. She has the ice cube tray in her hand. Opens the window simultaneously and loses her focus and drops the tray 5 floors to the street, hitting a big guy square in the dome. He looks up and started screaming and shouting in Italian. I live in Rome so I understood he was calling us some bad names. We just closed the window and continued drinking while we could hear this man shouting he was going to come up there and rip our heads off. Please never find me in our scary Italian man. That I hate all my ducking friends for not inviting me anywhere and my cycles of sudden realization that nobody cares about me except for my family. Edit. Holy duck, this blew up. I have 3 real friends who I met in my early days of college. Since summer break started. I've seen them exactly twice. And not for lack of trying either. Every week. I'll shoot a group message, anyone free sometime this week? Wanna do something? Never do. At this point I've withdrawn so much that I just play games. And work. I've been lucky enough, however, that I've met some good friends online. So that's good, I guess. It just sucks when people you've never really met are better friends than your supposed best buds. Sorry for the rant. Your post just made me feel like venting. Edit. Holy duck. This kinda blew up. I really appreciate the kind words and sympathies from all of you. In 5th grade I cheated on an exam. My buddy and I were the only 2 people in the grade who got this particular question correct. But I copied him. The worst part was he was considered dumb while I was at the top of the class. So the teacher was convinced that he copied me and he ended up getting suspended. I was too pussy to admit that I was the one who cheated, as my parents would have murdered me if I failed the test, and even worse if I got suspended. I saw my friend's nipple when I looked down her bra the other night whilst nursing her sunburnt shoulders and back. One night I woke up with my mind in a twist. My mom was in the hospital at the time. I had a crazy urge to call them and check on her. But I reasoned not to because I couldn't think of an excuse, so I fell back to sleep. 5 AM I get a call that they checked on her and she didn't have a pulse. I just think there was something I could have done that destroys me to even think about it. I had a friend in the grade below me that was very awkward and generally horrible with girls. One day my best friend and I decided to prank text him from my best friend's phone, as they didn't have each other's numbers, posing as a new girl. One that didn't exist. At school. He asked to see a picture of her face. So we snapped a photo of a girl's face on the cover of the nearest DVD. He completely fell for it. At this point we thought it was hilarious. So later we ended up sending him a picture that was really the crease of my elbow. He fell for it again. Sometimes his texts would get pretty raunchy. But thankfully he never tried to send any pictures. He began bragging at school about how he was hooking up with a transfer student and how they had sex all the time. Obviously. My best friend and I knew this was a lie. But we never called him out on it. Over Christmas break, his mother went through his phone and found all of his texts to this girl and grounded him for the entirety of his break. I felt horrible at this point and told my best friend that we needed to put an end to the prank. But that we needed to do it in a way that wouldn't humiliate him. I wanted to explain things to his mom. But she had a history of overreacting and we were afraid she may get law enforcement involved. We gradually stopped texting as much. And eventually the conversations halted altogether. For the next year, he continued to brag about all the nudes, BJS, and sex he was receiving from the imaginary girl. We've never told anyone about this, so none of our classmates know that he was utterly full of crap. I always tell my wife how much I love her makeup that day. I wish she would stop wearing it, but it makes her happy, so I decide to lie. My GF way overdresses for many things. I do my best to encourage more comfortable casual choices, but in the end, if that's what she wants to wear, it makes her happy and that's all I really want. One time in middle school, I asked to borrow my friend's pen for a moment to write something down. He was pulled out of the room for something a second later, and I just forgot that it was his pen. When he returned to the room, the teacher chewed him out for not having a pen on him. And I think he forgot that he gave it to me as well. I still feel guilty as duck about it. Plus side, I'm the godfather to his son now. I shall seek redemption in his time of need. The only reason I married my first wife was based completely on a lie. We were taking some time apart because she realized she still had feelings for an ex. I knew the relationship wouldn't really work long term. We were young and too different, but the thought of that rejection was too much for my egotistical mind to bear. I was driving and crying one night and ditched my car on a country road, my face slamming into the steering wheel in the process. I instantly had a huge bruise. And when I saw her next, I told her someone walked up to me and hit me in the face while telling me to stay away from her. She bought it. And we got back together. I later proposed to her because, and I quote my internal monologue, if I were willing to lie like that, I probably loved her. She cheated again, emptied our accounts and vanished. After she left, I was destroyed and sank into a decade-long depression. Became an alcoholic and basically tried to suicide via poor choices. I sort of deserved that Dear Big C letter and have no idea how to reconcile that fact with myself. When I was 10, I walked in on my mom and stepfather having sex. Standing up. Their backs were toward the door, so I just quietly backed out and never said a word about it. That was 40 years ago. My dad was having a heart attack in front of me and my mother. She yelled at me to go get help, but I froze in fear. He later died, which caused my mother to become addicted to prescription painkiller and then killed herself, while my brother also killed himself a year later. TL. Doctor, I ruined my family. When I was 4, I had a neighbor who was also about 3-4. My mom worked nights, so I would stay at my neighbors and hang out with their family. For about a year, once every week or so, I don't really remember, I would look her in a room, just the two of us. Force her to take off her clothes and touch and kiss her body. Keep in mind I was young and had no idea what I was doing or what sex was. Fast forward 20 years and my brother decides to look up our old family friends on Facebook. And the girl had recently overdosed on drugs. And her family is now trying to help people with depression. I don't think I'm aggressive at all, but I try to distance myself from people because I don't want to hurt anyone. I'll probably think of myself as a horrible person forever. Only saying this cause throwaway and I'm drunk. My dad cheated on my mum with her sister when I was born. My aunt moved in to help my mother with the newborn, that is, me. My mother told me while she was drunk at a dinner party. And started it all off with, you know. I know I sometimes sound like I hate you. But there's a reason. So, even though I love both of my parents, I secretly think they're both pretty awful excuses for human beings. My dad for obvious reasons. My mother for holding it all against me. Edit. I'm so sorry for the earlier ambiguity. My mother was the one who told me. I have never been allowed to meet my auntie. But never really knew why until my mother spilled the beans. Until then, I had been offered the excuse that it was because my mother didn't like my auntie's husband. Turns out my dad is the dickhead. In 7th grade, me and my friend Simon got the password for the admin accounts on our classroom's computer, and our teacher always came in late, so we would just change our grades whenever we got to class before him and the door was unlocked. I'm pretty sure this is what got me into a really good high school because I rarely did homework, but I usually knew the material. This will probably get buried. When I was 17, I met this guy and became really good friends with him. We never dated or anything, but I fell head over heels in love. Every moment with him felt romantic. I was convinced he was the one. Life happened, and due to some geographic restrictions, going to separate directions for uni, and just random and important shit, we lost touch after about a year. I told myself that I would forget about him and get over it. It's been over 10 years. And in some ways, I still haven't. He pops into my mind after every breakup I go through. Occasionally I look him up on Facebook. I've tried contacting him several times and we engage in small talk, but it never goes any further than that. I'm now seeing someone who definitely wants to marry me, and I'm pretty much convinced that this other guy has positive memories of our friendship, but no further interest. I know that I need to stop fantasizing and focus on the person I have, but some small part of me is having trouble letting go of the dream of this guy. I've gotten to a point where I've basically resigned myself to the idea that I will never have him, but also that I will never really let go. I secretly think I may be crazy. I cheated on my history exam. In 4th grade, I stole my Uncle Max's toupee and I glued it on my face when I played Moses in my Hebrew school play. In 5th grade, I knocked my sister Edie down the stairs and I blamed it on the dog. When my mom sent me to summer camp for fat kids and then they served lunch, I got nuts and I pigged out and they kicked me out. But the worst thing I ever done, I mixed a pot of fake puke at home and then I went to this movie theater, hid the puke in my jacket, climbed up to the balcony, and then I made a noise like this, hua 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 hua, and then I dumped it over the side, all over the people in the audience. This was horrible. All the people started getting sick and throwing up all over each other. I never felt so bad in my entire life. Gonna get buried but duck it. About 10 years ago I met my now wife and her 2-year-old daughter that was a product of a grape. After falling in love with her, I decided to adopt the little girl under the condition that we tell everyone that we had a one-night stand, and I got her pregnant and she couldn't find me for 2 years. I don't like lying about paternity, but I love this little girl so much I couldn't even fathom the idea of her growing up and finding out how she came to be. Now my parents call me the family who whore and make jokes about it, and it ducky pisses me off. But I love her and treat her like I treat my own son. As a bonus, the entire reason I married my wife was to adopt her daughter. We've been married for 8 years now and my daughter is now 12. She never questions it and I will never let anyone find out the truth. It could ruin my life. I've made it a point not to tell any friends I make or girls I begin to love since high school that I had a brother who died in a motorcycle accident when I was 15. There's no good way to bring it up. It only heals good moods. And with girls, they feel like they can't come to me with problems because generally it isn't as bad as losing a brother. Opening yourself up can make dealing with things a lot easier. But in my experience, if things don't work out, the fall makes relearning to be self-sufficient at coping absolute torture. That I'm actually really ducking miserable. I really dislike the rest of the family save grandma and aunt. Every day I want to just disappear and there is no one I genuinely love. I don't even know what it feels like to love. And I don't know why. I don't know what I want to do in life and would love to have never been to college. I really just want friends, but I'm a depressed wreck who's limited and is too scared to do anything to change it. I can't tell anyone about this because everyone says just to go out and meet people or get help. No car. No buses here. Nowhere to meet people. And a social wreck. We can't afford help. And it just tells me to never tell my mom. The one person I should tell because she'll either say I'm overreacting or feel like she failed as a mother. Edit 1. Thanks for offers guys and gals. Sad to say talking doesn't help me anymore. I used to talk about problems but it never made me feel better or actually changed things. My mother is a virgin but has kids. She's psychologically traumatized due to having weird, extremely conservative parents that stigmatized anything sexual to a weird degree. She was kind of like this with me too, but I broke the barrier she tried to impose on me. She went through IVF with my father to have me and my siblings. I know this because my aunt told me. I knew I was an IVF baby but my parents gave me a nonsensical health reason as to why. My aunt told me when my mother got married she was fretting over having sex for the first time and she was holding it off for ages. But it just never happened and several years into marriage they wanted kids. It possibly means my father is a virgin too, as they got married extremely young and dated nobody previous to each other. My father would have had to have cheated on my mother to not be a virgin. Which doesn't seem like something he would do. He's a very loyal person and follows his personal moral code very strictly. I always remember him like this. I think I might be the only person in the world other than biblical Jesus to be in this situation. At first I didn't believe my aunt, but then I realized it connected all the dots about everything I knew about my parents. I don't think I'll reveal this about them to anyone for their own sake. Even when they are dead.